got 7 o'clock, so we can call the meeting to order.
Yep. All right. I'll start with the we're going to start with the roll call.
Please.
All right. Robert Hannon. Rich Berlandi.
Here.
Dave Fox.
Here.
Robert Eisner.
Here.
Neil Kelsey. Neil, I thought
Here.
I saw you. Good, thank you.
Yeah, I'm here. I'm here.
Mark's here. Mark, also Mark Simpson
I'm here.
and Ned Stachin
Here.
and Karen Vibber. All right. All right, Chair. It's all yours.
Okay, so we'll start with new business town of Farmington application.
We have Dylan Riley here. Introduce yourself.
Hi, good evening. My name is Dylan Riley. I am a civil engineer for the town of Farmington. Tonight is the second part of the approval for the Burlington Road application that we put in. I have nothing new to add in terms of edits to the plans or anything of that nature. But I would like to go over the roadway widths, as that seemed to be an area of concern at the last meeting. Throughout the roadway, we tried to standardize the widths. Starting at the Burlington Town line, going towards River Road, the existing width was about 29 feet for the majority of that part of the roadway. Our new standard width from the Burlington Town line to all the way to Doris is 28 feet. One of the areas of concern that the commission had was with the vertical curve just past River Road. Here I prepared one of our sheets from the plan set for the existing, this is an existing roadway plan. Highlighted below where you can see the driveways for property number 63 Burlington Road. I believe that number is 65, just below. Thank you, Bruce. In the last meeting, I mentioned our widest point at this area was about, I think it was 33 feet. But as you can see, that's really just for a short 100 feet, 7,500 feet, where for some reason the edge of roadway jogged inward or south towards the properties of 63 and 65 for one reason or another. But our new roadway will be 28 feet here. The red line that connects the driveways for these two properties represents what the alignment should have been for this area, and that is a 29-foot width with the other side of the road overall. So we are about overall 28.5, 29 feet throughout this section of roadway. And it's really just this small area where it jets out. I was just trying to outline the irregularities between the road widths throughout the corridor at the last meeting, and I may have made it a bit more confusing than it needed to be. And then after Doris Street, we reduced the roadway width from the standard 28 feet to 24 feet. But after Doris Street, the existing roadway at its narrowest point is about 20 feet at the cross culvert.
Right here.
Yeah,
Okay.
right there is its narrowest point, and we are widening overall between Doris and 177. We are widening the roadway by about 2 feet from an existing overall width of about 22 feet to 24. That's all I had to add from the last meeting.
Thanks, Dylan.
course.
All right, I'll go around and see if there's any questions. Ned, I'll start with you because you're probably gonna have the
Uh,
the best set of
no,
questions, if
actually-
any, on a road project.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the efforts they made. It looked, it made it a little wider in some areas, so I don't have any further questions. I appreciate the effort.
Thank you. Mark, any questions, comments?
Well, you mentioned that one section where homeowners, they had a wide road. And what do I assume you're gonna put in some material there to connect their driveway to the new road, the short, shorten.
Absolutely, yeah. So every in the plan set, because we're doing both slightly vertical and horizontal alignment shifts, and we're talking inches here, nothing crazy, for the most part. But all of the driveways will likely be getting new aprons.
Okay, and one other question: if a new road was built in town, what would be the width requirement of the new road? Is it 24 or is it 28? If you did a new road,
It all varies. In
Yeah.
this one would have been 26 technically.
Yeah.
26. Okay, it's not. It's based on whatever, where the location of the road. Okay, it's not standardized. It's not uniform. That's pretty much what you're saying. All right, thank you. I have no further questions.
Thanks, Mark. Neil, any questions?
Nothing further, thanks. I still don't like the narrowness of this road, but at this point, there's nothing we can do about it. So no further questions.
Rich, any questions?
No, no questions.
Dave, any questions?
No questions.
Okay, and I don't have any additional questions or comments. So with that, is there a motion? Motion to approve, perhaps?
Dave will move that. Ned can second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Yeah, I'm opposed.
Okay, so we would have four in favor, one opposed. That motion would carry. All right, so that's going to do it.
Yep. Let me go back. Sorry, I apologize. Let me go back to your agenda so you can see. There you go.
Yeah, okay. Looks like we have another application for the town of Farmington on Plainville Avenue.
Yep,
Dylan, I guess that's gonna be you again.
Yep, this was the one, if you recall, this was for the work along the trail, that emergency and embankment repair. While I was away on vacation last week, Russell Arnold, our Director of Public Works, and Shannon Rutherford had met with the FRWA, Army Corps, and the parks, the national parks, and they had discussed ways to repair this. So they are working through a permit. We have to engage in a consultant. From there, we're going to work on getting a permit submitted to the Army Corps, and so this will be more information to follow.
And Bruce, I know you're away, but we did have quite a bit more rain over the last couple of weeks.
I heard.
Were there any additional?
Yeah.
Are you aware of any additional problems with further washouts, or did the temporary repairs seem to hold well through the additional rain?
The temporary repair had held up pretty well. We were chatting about that a little bit this morning. I guess, believe it or not, the river did not come up as high as we thought it was going to, because the rain was localized. Everything out towards Burlington and further east actually did not get as much rain as us. So it was kind of like a spot where it just hovered over us and just dropped everything right on Farmington. So that didn't have much of an effect on the river at all. So in that case, the water did not back up as much, causing any kind of problems.
Okay, and Bruce, do you have a tentative time frame? There's really not much more for us to do tonight.
Yep. I don't have anything much more than I know Russ had contacted a consultant. They're meeting to discuss it this week. Once they have their meeting, I'll have a lot more information, hopefully, and a schedule to follow. All right.
Okay.
So at some point, not knowing what their timeline is, we may have to do something on our side. All right.
Okay, so this will stay on our agenda for a while. We'll just go around and see if there's any other questions from the commission. We'll go in reverse order this time. Dave, any questions?
No, not at this time.
Rich?
No questions right now.
Okay, Neil?
No questions.
Mark?
I have none.
Ed?
No questions.
Okay, in Bruce, we don't need a motion to table. It's just tables automatically, correct?
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
Okay, thanks. So this will be tabled. We'll move on to the next item, and I did get an agenda while we were doing the first applications. We'll move on to Farmington West Estates LP.
I think we have Attorney Ziogas here.
Yes, you do. Thank you. Mr. Chairman, James Ziogas, 104 Bellevue Avenue, Bristol, for the applicant. At the last meeting, we had discussed extensive items in our presentation, and the commission had come back to us with some questions and some reservations. We're in the midst of working our way through that. We're trying to reduce the impacts to the wetlands areas on both the east and the west side. The engineer and our soil scientists, we met yesterday. They've got some ideas on how to do that. We think it's best that we table this for now and schedule an on-site inspection so that the commission can get an idea of some of the issues that are existing on the property relating to the wetlands area and the invasive species, and we call it a stone wall, but it's basically a farm wall of some kind that exists on the west side of the property. So with Bruce's help, I'd like to schedule an on-site as soon as possible so that we can keep this application moving in the right direction.
Jim, did you discuss with Sev and everything? The wetland flags are clearly marked. Any kind of disturbances are marked as well?
Yeah, all the houses are marked out. The wetlands are marked, so we should have a pretty good walk once we get there.
All right. So looking at my calendar here, it looks like we can do it early as this Saturday, which is the 23rd. I know that Jim said, I think the wetland scientist has a conflict on Sunday, the 24th. So they also mentioned the feasibility of doing a Monday late walk after hours. I'm not sure what everyone's availability would be on a Monday afternoon. So we can plan that if that's actually better for everybody.
I'm actually
I
out
could
of town through. I'm out of town through Monday.
Okay. Are you back on Monday, Neil?
Late Monday. So
Okay, so you're out. No, I just wanted to know. Thank you.
This is Mark. I'm in the same boat as Neil. I guess I could potentially make what time are you talking about Monday? 5, 6?
I think that would be the case, Jim, right? Like sometime after like 4:30.
I think 5:30 would probably be a good time. It gives us enough of daylight, provided the weather cooperates. We should be able to do it in that remaining daylight.
If we do it on Monday, I'm assuming we probably have to be done by 6:30 because I'm thinking it's going to start getting dark at that point.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know what availability are, but I'm not available Saturday or Sunday.
Okay. So that's one vote for Monday. Anybody else?
Bruce, I
This
could
is
do
Ned.
Monday.
Oh,
Go ahead, Ned. After you, Ned, go.
This is Ned. I'm okay for the weekend or Monday.
okay.
Dave is also okay with either one.
This is Robert. I could do Monday night. UConn football's 3:30 at the Rent, so early Saturday would be better.
Okay. Anybody else in there? Rich?
I'm able to make it any of those times.
Okay, you're either as well.
My
Dave?
suggestion is go with the best time for everyone, so you can have
Exactly.
enough time to see the whole piece of property before darkness. And maybe Monday might not be doable,
Yeah.
but it's up to you guys to decide.
I think, if we start at 5:30, that would give us ample time. The area's not that big and, that will give us an hour and a half before it gets too dark.
So we want to plan for Monday at 5:30? Is that what we're doing?
Sounds good to me.
Okay,
All right. I'll send out a reminder and a little agenda. Jim, you'll take care of letting everybody know.
Yes, of course. Yep,
All right.
I'll get everybody there. And
George will be there. George will be there too.
George will be there, Seb Bavina will be there, and I'll be there. Whatever good I can provide. But yeah, we'll have our whole staff there.
So that's going to be Monday, what am I?
25th.
Monday the 25th. Okay.
All
And then
right,
Bruce, just make sure when you send out the information, you tell us where to park because there's a couple of different areas.
Exactly. Okay. We'll figure that out. All
Very
right.
good. Thank you, Mr.
All right, Jim. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bruce. Appreciate it.
All right, we'll move down to item 4, cease and desist,
Oh,
8451 Main Street.
All right. Hold on one second. Karen
I
Vibert.
guess it's 504 Main Street, lot 8451.
Yeah, just give me 1 second. Karen Vibert just signed in. I'm going to promote her. Maybe let's give her a second. No. Oh, sorry. What, I didn't hear what I was paying attention to this. Yeah. Karen, are you there? Let's see if she's on. Give her 1 second. Karen, can you hear us? You're on mute. All right, let's see if she can resolve that. Let's move on. Sorry. Bob, we're on Hartford Healthcare. I apologize. Is that what you said? Or
Yeah, I'll use your agenda. I must have an old agenda.
all right, yeah.
Thanks.
504. It's our 9 Farm Springs Road, Hartford Healthcare.
Yes,
All
that's the
right.
one. Thank you.
We have Eric Davison on as well as the project manager. Where is he? Andrew. There he is. Andrew Gerard. Are you there, Andrew?
All set. Yeah.
Oh, good.
Yep.
Good. We hear you. Okay.
Great.
All
Good
you.
evening. All right. Awesome. Yeah. Good evening, everybody. Thanks for having us on. My name is Andrew Gerard. I'm a project manager representing Hartford Healthcare. Today, we are presenting an application regarding a proposal to manage the current vegetation and to complete a restoration of the stormwater detention basin that is on the property here at our Hartford Healthcare Administrative Building. It's 9 Farm Spring Road. It's in an effort to recover and improve the view shed of the building from I-84. I put a team together that consists of Eric Davison, a wetland scientist and registered soil scientist from Davison Environmental, as well as Michael Ott. He's a civil engineer of Summerhill Civil Engineers and land surveyors to assist in the development of a restoration and maintenance plan of the detention basin on the property in accordance with the regulations put forth by this commission. Hartford Healthcare has agreed and is committed to following Eric's and Mike's recommendations over the next several months and receiving full guidance from the both of them as the project would commence and thereafter. But with that, I will pass it over to Eric for a more in-depth review of the proposed management and restoration plan as submitted in our application. And I'm here to support and clarify any questions that the commission may have throughout our presentation this evening.
Thank you.
Hi, how you doing? Can everyone hear me okay? It's Eric Davison.
Yep. We can hear you, Eric.
Good, good. Eric Davison, wetland scientist, soil scientist for the applicant. So when this project initiated, the goal for Hartford Healthcare was to, clear the view shed from I-84 out to the building where there's a large sign that indicates that it's a Hartford Healthcare property. Obscuring the view is vegetation that lies in the I-84 right-of-way and and mostly within what is a large stormwater basin that's being shown there on your screen that lies just east of the building. The basin, Mike can go into some more detail about the basin, but the basin was constructed, I believe, sometime in the 70s or early 80s. It's never been maintained. So what's growing in it now is very dense Phragmites and a number of trees and tall shrubs. So once we evaluated how we could support clearing the vegetation to provide a view shed and not impact the wetlands, we realized that quickly the best way to do this was go in and restore this basin that's had no maintenance and is in a vegetative state that's not ideal for a stormwater basin, because it's got so much tree and shrub growth both in the basin and along the banks of the basin. And based on the density of the Phragmites and shrubs and what you can sort of tell what the slope of the interior of the basin is, it seems pretty clear that it's got a pretty heavy sediment load. So it's now really just in a flow through condition. It doesn't seem to be retaining any flow, slowing flow, or really doing its job to capture sediment and treat pollutants is our best guess. But the big issue is we can't really evaluate the basin because the vegetation is so thick. So the plan became let's restore the basin, because in doing so, it accomplishes the goals of Hartford Healthcare, which would be to clear the view shed, because we want to take out the trees and shrubs that are growing there that shouldn't be growing there. The small caveat to that is that it does include some clearing in the I-84 right-of-way. There's much less growth there that's blocking the view. There are a few trees, but it's mostly dense Phragmites. So we would like to wrap that vegetation management into this proposal, but in a slightly different way. But basically what we want to do is come up with a full basin restoration plan that's going to start with, we want to come in and mow all of the Phragmites down, and we want to cut the trees and shrubs so that we can get in and do a visual evaluation of the basin and figure out what it needs for restoration. But our guess is that it's going to need sediment removal to restore some volume capacity. And our plan is to try to do that sediment removal in a way that also eliminates some Phragmites. So stepwise, the plan would be, first, the Hartford Healthcare has an arborist on staff to do or contracted to do the work already. They would come in and do an initial herbicide treatment of the Phragmites. Once that treatment sets, we would cut the Phragmites and cut the trees and shrubs so we could do the evaluation. The only caveat to that is the timing. If that initial cutting comes after the growing season, which is coming quickly, we would flop that invasive herbicide treatment to the spring. But if everything goes well timing wise, we'd like to get in that initial herbicide treatment, then come in and cut and mow so that we can evaluate the basin. And that's when Mike Ott, which he can describe what the plan is, Mike Ott's going to develop a more detailed plan that reflects the conditions that we see when we open everything up. But again, we're anticipating there's going to be a pretty good sediment load in there based on the fact that there is no open water, no open areas at all. It is just very dense vegetation. So we're hoping that when we go to muck out the sediment and restore the basin bottom, we can remove a lot of the Phragmites root masses and rhizomes, which is how it spreads and grows new plants, so that next season, when we replant everything, we have a lesser population of Phragmites to deal with, and we can do 1 or 2 more Phragmites treatments with herbicide and then plant native vegetation, so that ultimately after the end of next growing season, we would have a fully restored basin that doesn't have woody growth in it, and is mostly native species, and hopefully provides much better pollutant retention and sediment retention. In terms of the trees and shrubs that need to come out, there's about 30 or so. They're all about 2 to 4 inches in diameter, all about 25 feet in height, roughly. Pretty typical species. The dominant species is quaking aspen, which is a pioneer species that grows, you know, at the edges of disturbed areas. So most of the trees are aspen. There's a few hickory and elm and red maple, and a few oaks as well. Most of the shrubs are invasive, a lot of honeysuckle. When you get down into the basin, there's a few native shrubs, but most of the wetter parts of the basin are just solid Phragmites. It's really unwalkable. So that's why we weren't really able to evaluate it. We were able to get in and see the outlet of the basin where there's a high flow outlet and a low flow outlet. We were able to visually see those pipe outlets and see them well enough to know that the water is just moving through the basin and doesn't really have any holding capacity. But in terms of the highway side vegetation, it's the same thing. There's a few trees, similar species, but it's mostly just dense Phragmites. So, you know, again, overall, the plan is in order to achieve Hartford Healthcare's visual goals, it perfectly aligns with making this basin functional. So I feel like it's a win-win here. This basin, ultimately, it drains east of 84, and it does drain into Batterson Park Pond. So it would certainly be good to have it, you know, fully functioning in terms of sediment retention and pollutant retention. So that's a pretty good overview. I think I'll let Mike jump in and talk you through what the plan is for the basin restoration.
Eric, if you don't mind if I interrupt for a second.
Yeah, sure.
Just so we're clear, because here is the detention basin, right? This was the wetland area, and how much of this corridor along 84 was the wetland? Is it pretty much this dense area here?
It doesn't. That's roughly it. As you go south, it doesn't. It ends right about there where your cursor is, about where it ends.
They're just trying to understand where these trees are in relation to, because there's some large trees look like they want to.
Yeah, that wooded area at the south, the wetland ends at the wooded area south, and Andrew can correct, but I don't believe that those are what they're looking to clear down all the way down at the southern end. I believe Andrew can correct me, but I believe it's just what's on the.
There are, if you recall, Eric, when we were on site, there are a few in there that we would under prune essentially, similar to the work that we're doing on the state right away. But no significant clearing of those trees will be happening.
But yeah, that Bruce, that densely wooded area, if that was Bruce talking, I couldn't tell. That densely wooded area that you're circling, that the wetland ends in there, so that those taller trees are not in the wetland. Those are on a slope, a steep slope that borders down. You have to drop down into that slope and then go north to where, right where you can sort of see the vegetation change.
Exactly.
Where
it
really follows that Phragmites line. A lot of the taller trees on that southern end there's some tall white pines in there.
Okay. Yeah, I just want to make sure that the commission was aware exactly where wetlands were and stuff like that. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bruce.
Mike, are you there? I thought I saw him in here. Did we lose him?
Muted.
Oh, he's muted. Mike, I think you're muted.
Oh, sorry. I apologize. I was having trouble unmuting, and I don't see that I can control my video. Oh, I see it. I'm sorry. Apologize. There it is. So just for the record, I'm Michael Ott. I'm a licensed professional engineer and land surveyor with Summerhill Civil Engineers and Land Surveyors in our offices in Madison, Connecticut. Eric and Andrew I think have done a really good job, and Eric has explained the basin. There's not much more I can tell you about the basin at this point, with the exception of we know that they're from I had come into the town hall to do a little research on the land use department's records for the parcel, And Bruce was nice enough to find some information and share it with me. So there is a survey from 2017 that indicates that there's 3 discharge points into the basin. One of them is a 30-inch diameter reinforced concrete pipe along the southern end of the basin, which is within or at least partially within an easement in favor of the town. It appears that the town has the right to discharge to the basin, and it from the research that I did, it appears that the basin not only accepts stormwater runoff from the 9 Farm Springs Road site itself, but also a portion of the 10 Farm Springs Road parcel to the west across the street, as well as, I believe, a portion of Farm Springs Road, the Farm Springs Road drainage system itself. We haven't done a thorough investigation, but based on the town's GIS that Bruce is showing now, and some other published information, that appears to be the case. The contributing drainage area could be on the order of 20 acres. As Eric said, we were able to see the outlet pipes. There's a 12-inch RCP, reinforced concrete pipe, and a 24-inch. They're set a foot apart in elevation. The 12-inch is 1 foot lower than the 24-inch. That's coordinated with the design plan, which was done in 1979. Other than that, we weren't able to see in the basin, but it appears from what I could see and the record information that the basin may not be providing a much of a stormwater quality function today. And I don't know about its detention function at this point. The design plans and the as-built plan show that the 12-inch pipe, the lower outlet, was to be set approximately at the basin bottom elevation. So once the stormwater quality wasn't, I think it's probably fair to say, didn't have the same focus with regard to stormwater management in the late 70s. So I don't really know what the design intent was, but once the basin is cleared, as Eric said, we'll have a chance to evaluate it and come up with a plan for its restoration, and hopefully be able to improve its functions, including stormwater quality. The other thing I can tell you is there's a walking path along the top. The basin appears to have been constructed by both excavation and the formation of an embankment on the east side, parallel to the highway, and there's a stone dust surfaced walking path that Bruce has shown with his cursor along the top of the embankment. On the west side, there's a municipal sanitary sewer within an easement in favor of the town of Farmington. And that southerly purple storm sewer discharge that you see is the 30-inch pipe coming into the basin. I think the next one up to the north is a 15. And I believe there's one more, it's further up by the corner of the building, I think, Bruce.
Right there. Sorry, that one right there. Yep, I got you.
Yeah. Yep, thank you. Is a 12-inch pipe. So I think that's really all I can tell you about the basin itself. We did start to outline a maintenance and inspection and maintenance plan for the basin. And we did submit that with the application. And once we get the basin cleared and we get a better look at it, we'll be able to modify that and add to it. I think that's about all I can tell you at this point. The basin does, as Eric said, the outflow is conveyed beneath the highway, and then it flows southeasterly, kind of an easterly to Batterson. It joins Batterson Park Pond.
Underneath Batterson, at the bridge and then flows right into the pond from there. So.
Yep. Yep. So, you know, obviously stormwater quality would be of particular importance. So I'd answer any questions the commission might have, and but I think at this point that's a summary of what I can tell you about it.
Andrew, if you could just answer quick for us, and again, I want to, because there's a point I want to get to in here regarding our agenda review with regards to your schedule.
Sure.
You're looking for a schedule here?
Yeah, absolutely. We would like to request the ability to start this work, the clearing of the detention basin, the mowing of the Phragmites, as soon as possible. We have our arborists lined up and ready to do the work, and we'd like to accomplish as much as we can prior to the winter, in hopes to restore the basin to full functionality, but also review that, or recover that view shed that we're looking for this new building that we had joined just back in March. So if possible, that's what we're hoping to do. I know there is a 2-week period until the next meeting, but if we can grant the ability to get in there as soon as the end of this week, it would be much appreciated.
And the reason I asked that for the commission, back in 2017, there was a maintenance plan developed for that pond. There really wasn't as much of a detailed clearing as indicated in this proposal, but as I'm understanding it, speaking with both Andrew, Mike, and Eric, that this is a 2-part process. One of them is to get the clearing done in the basin, because as you can see, let me go back to the pictures. You can see how thick it is, and I could attest that I've been in there, and it's almost impractical to get in there to actually see what's going on. So it's almost a 2-part process where the basin needs to be cleared, and then from there the inspections have to be made, and then a schedule has to be put together for the removal of the sediment and timing in terms of when it could be done, in terms of minimal rain. And whether you can get equipment in there without it sinking in there. So, and this is and maybe this is more for Eric, but maybe this is a winter job of going in there and pulling out that sediment, trying to get this work done before the spring rains. Is that kind of?
Yeah. Just to clarify, it's Eric Davison. For the initial clearing, there will be no ground disturbance, no stump removal. So they're just going to flush cut tall trees and shrubs and carry the brush out, out of there. So there won't be any soil disturbance. We're not grubbing or grading or removing any of the stumps. If during the more detailed evaluation of the basin embankment shows that some of those trees do need to be grubbed out, because you really don't want trees growing along the earthen embankment of the basin, then we can do that at a later date. But for the initial assessment, we won't do any ground disturbance. So you're really just talking about converting the vegetation that's successional and Phragmites turning into forest and making it back into a meadow. So there's no wetland disturbance other than altering the vegetation. It's temporary until we can evaluate the basin.
All right. So would it be feasible to say that maybe planting is completed in the spring of 24?
I would think we would plant in the spring, because I think we can get the sediment removed. You can plant, especially wet seed mixes, in the fall, and they can cold stratify. But the reality is we won't get any real good ground cover and coverage in there until the spring. So my thought was we get the sediment removal done this winter, and we plant in the spring as soon as conditions allow. In probably not March, but probably April and May when you get done with the real wet spring weather.
All right. So, Chair, that's what I wanted to just let everyone know, that this is more of a 2-part application. So, in terms of their request to probably go in here, clear it for exploratory work, and then from there come back to the commission with a plan in terms of removal and a restoration plan, would kind of be, I think that what they're asking for.
And I think, Bruce, if you were able to let us go in there now, I would think by next, within a month, we could be back to you with our on-site evaluation and a more detailed
Perfect.
description of what the plan is.
Timing would work, right? I think we make that, yeah. I think we can make the timing work in the application too, so.
Yeah, Bruce, I think I'm probably gonna have to exercise, the right as a chair and push back a little bit.
Okay,
Because what I don't like about the project, and this would be fair for the rest of the commission to weigh in on, is the purpose of the work is to improve the aesthetics of the property. And if that's the driving force, it sets a really dangerous precedent. And we see lots of people that go in and clear their property because they want to improve the aesthetics. If there is an environmental or engineering reason why this work should be done, then that's very, very different. But I don't like the idea of for visuals without any engineering or environmental benefit, going in and using an herbicide treatment and then seeing what's there. I don't hear any urgency to do the work. I recognize the design team here has a client, Hartford Healthcare, that would like to get this done as soon as possible. But from a regulatory and from a procedural standpoint, I'd rather have the information up front to know that we're doing this in the interest of valid environmental and engineering reasons and not just aesthetics, so that Hartford Healthcare can enjoy more marketing for the people driving on the highway. And that's what I heard is the premise of the application. I don't see any urgency. Let's get the facts, and then, so I think tonight we're probably better off, and I'll let the rest of the commission weigh in as well. But I think tonight we're probably better off just receiving the application. And I recognize the design team. You said there's some seasonal, there are weather and seasonal conditions that you have to try and work as quickly as possible. But I don't like rushing applications unless there's a reason to do so. So I'm gonna kick it around to the rest of the commission and see what their feelings are on the application, because at a minimum we need to accept the application tonight, but whether we're going to authorize additional activity is sort of a second question. So Dave Fox, I'll start with you to see if you have any questions or comments on what we've heard so far.
Yeah, thank you. I guess I'm particularly concerned about, once you figure out what you're going to do with the basin, is it going to really, can you design something that will give real water quality benefits? I would think with 4 bays and some kind of a sinuous path or something, you could slow things down. It looks like the outlet is like on the north end, and a lot of the inputs are on the south end, so you have a lot of room to work with. So hopefully you can design something that is going to actually have water quality benefits. But I guess one of my questions is, how much you have to clear this to figure out what you can do. Can you come up with some sort of a plan of what you think might work in terms of water quality benefits before the clearing?
I guess that's a question for the design team. So Andrew, Eric, or Mike, any feedback?
Eric, do you want to take the lead on that, and then I'll.
Yeah. So, and just to respond to what you had said, Mr. Chairman. So the work in the basin, there is an engineering purpose for that, and that is to restore the basin. And again, the goal, Harvard Healthcare's goal and the basin restoration goals are one and the same there. East of the berm in the highway right away, that cutting those trees is purely for aesthetics to restore the view. There's no, that is being requested purely for aesthetics. And again, that's just cutting the trees and leaving the stumps intact. But for the majority of the work in the basin, I guess what we're suggesting or offering, if you want to look at it like this in a mitigation sense, is that you have a basin that does not appear to be functioning either as designed, and probably, as Mike stated, wasn't designed up to the standards that we now look for in a modern stormwater detention system. So we're sort of saying, as mitigation for doing some of this work, we're offering to restore this basin, which drains to, you know, an important recreational resource. In the only rush is for the initial assessment. We can't develop a plan until we can see what's in the basin bottom and see these inlets and outlets. And if you saw the basin, you would see you physically can't get in there, and you can't make a visual inspection of any of these features without that vegetation being cut. You could try to selectively cut it and look at parts of the basin, but it's just the only way to really do it is come in and cut everything. So you can see all of the banks, the inlets and outlets, and what's on the basin bottom.
So, Michael Ott for the record. So the commissioner, I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name, that asked about possibly creating a, you know, longer sinuous path through the bottom of the basin. Possibly in fact, that's one of the things that Eric and I have talked about. The outlets are actually more roughly in the middle of the eastern side of the basin. The two outlet pipes, they're right next to each other, and they're roughly they're actually not so those are the inlets. So the outlets actually and that's actually not where they are. They're actually, based on the as-built plan, they're actually more in the middle. They're south of that. They're more in the middle of the basin on the eastern side. The basin bottom appears to be 45-ish feet in width. It's pretty narrow. The basin's about 140-ish feet long. So it's quite, you know, its length is much greater than its width. But there are things we can do. We've talked about getting an idea where the groundwater is, the seasonal groundwater, seeing if we can deepen the basin to provide some detention below the outlet, below the low outlet, the 12-inch pipe. We talked about creating, you know, internal micro topography to create longer flow paths, which are a benefit for water quality. You know, Eric has talked about, once he can see it, talked about the type of plantings that would be, you know, installed in the basin bottom to improve its water quality function. So there are some things we can do. It's just that it is, you know, all three of us were out there within the past 2 weeks, I think it was, and it is rather thick. It doesn't appear, as Eric said, it doesn't appear to have been maintained for quite some time. The other thing I should say is it's always, you know, it's never good to allow woody vegetation to take over a stormwater management basin, especially in the embankment sections, the part, you know, the eastern side of it. Having woody vegetation in an embankment or on an embankment is never a good idea. So that woody vegetation really should be removed. It should be flush cut at a minimum. I'm not sure if we'd want to excavate it out, but it should be flush cut at a minimum and kept in that condition.
From what I'm understood too, Chair and Commissioner Fox, is that they have already received approval from the DOT to clear in their right of way, right, which is along here. So that was one of the steps in there. As far as I'm aware, that because it's on state property, they're exempt from any of our local wetland regulations. So really, I think the main focus is the detention basin itself. So I think that's the two parts. They're holding off on this. They already have the approval for this. They're just holding off until they get this approval so they can do both of it at the same time.
Is that
Thanks,
right of way? Is that wetland as well?
Yes, Eric, are you there? Eric had mentioned that this area
Yes.
here.
Yeah, there is a drainage swale strip of wetlands in between the highway and the berm, right where he's circling.
Is your approval from DOT or from DEEP?
I'd have to clarify that with the arborist.
Yeah, Dave, my assumption would be they probably have DOT's approval to cut the trees in the right of way, but that would be separate from the DEP
Yeah,
approval for work in wetlands. And we know one of DOT's strengths is not wetland preservation.
Hey,
I'm pretty familiar with that.
Except for projects that Ned is involved with. Okay,
Okay,
Dave,
I
other
guess-
questions or comments?
I guess that's it. That's it for me for now. Thank
Okay.
you.
Rich, any questions?
Yeah, my big question was where the outlet is to the basin, and then again, to Dave's point, what can be done to make the basin more functional to actually do what a typical stormwater basin designed today is intended to do. Those are my two comments. Thank you.
Neil, any comments?
Just a couple questions more to understand, where we are, how we got to the situation. Did I hear right that this basin was put in 2017?
This is Mike Ott for the record. No, the design plan is dated 1979.
79. Okay.
Yeah, there's a 2017 partial as-built survey was in the town's land use department files.
Okay. Thanks for clarifying. I confused those dates. How long has Hartford Healthcare been in this building?
Yes, we acquired the building on March 3rd of 2023, so about 6 months now.
All right. And was there any discussion of this basin at that time?
Not completely, other than the fact that we wanted to and mow it and maintain it, right? We inherited a severely overgrown basin here. And in all honesty, we acted in good faith to bring Bruce on board to say, hey, what can we do with this, if anything, right? We had installed the signage, planning on eventually doing something, but not really sure. So we had the hopes to have that viewpoint, a huge benefit of having the building. So respectfully, in good faith, we did the right thing, and we want to do the right thing, and we want to continue to work with Eric and Mike to ensure that we meet all of the regulations that you guys are putting forth. It's very important to us that we do this correctly.
Okay, thank you. And I'll just finally reiterate what Commissioner Eisner said, because that's where I went on this as well. I don't see pushing this or expediting this, without a real good reason to do so. And, an application based on aesthetics as a purpose, doesn't sit well with me. Nothing further at this time.
Okay, Mark, any questions or comments?
I guess I would just follow up on that, and it was my impression that this was not an issue that had to be done immediately, because it did seem to me more or less an aesthetic type of application. But one thing got answered in one of my questions was about the right of way, and I heard that the DOT is allowing them to cut. So if it didn't have that little piece in place, I don't know why the other part would be done on the aesthetic side if it would be still blocking the view to the highway. But I agree. I don't think this should be rushed. I think we should go through our normal channels of how we approach these things. I heard the representatives saying they got to do things right from their point of view, and they brought the town in, but we got to do it right from our point of view as members of this commission. That's all I have to say.
Thanks. Ned, questions or comments?
Yeah, I don't know. I guess I'm looking at this from a little different point of view. I think there is a need to do this. I mean, that the capacity is greatly reduced on the way it is now from where it might look like in 1979. So I don't see that as an aesthetic thing. So, I don't see a reason to put a rush on this, but I also don't see this as strictly an aesthetic, problem. I think they have a responsibility to make sure that, sediment basins are there for a reason, and they gotta be able to treat the water before it runs off into Batterson Park Pond. And one thing I was wondering if there's any evidence with this sediment basin so filled, are there any problems with like the catch basins or standing water around catch basins because it's not draining properly? I know you haven't only been there 6 months, but have you noticed that at all to the applicant?
Not that I can speak on, no.
Okay.
Yeah, just to clarify,
Sorry.
it's in a flow through condition. So basically the water's coming in one side and out the other. So you're not getting any retention time. So, no treatment. That's the best we can tell. But the water is getting through there. But I think you hit it on the head there. I would put this schedule aside and the DOT issues aside. What we're really talking about here is restoration and maintenance of a basin. But the reality is the reason we got to this point was because Hartford Healthcare wants to improve the views. So it seemed a little disingenuous to come in and say, hey, we're here to restore this basin and we need to take out these trees. But it happens to be that those two goals align, that this basin needs work and it also has trees that are blocking the view that the applicant wants removed.
Okay, and then when I look at big maps or global view or whatever, I know there's a lot of like the islands in the parking lot are barren. So if you're going to remove trees as part of this project, would it be open to maybe installing some smaller trees that are used with islands or something like that to try and help maintain the number of trees on the property?
Absolutely.
Okay. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Ted. And Bruce, I'm gonna maybe go out of order a little bit and welcome Karen Vibert. Karen,
Oh, is she back?
Bruce did say that you're joining the commission, so you can either monitor the discussion, or if you had any initial thoughts or comments for the applicant, you certainly have the ability to add in based on what you've heard tonight.
Thank you for the offer. I was literally sworn in, I think, 24 hours ago. So I've had a lot of catching up to do. So I appreciate the offer, but for right now, I'm going to be doing catching up and listening.
Great, thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, so Bruce, procedurally, we have to accept the application. So I think for the commission, right, Bruce, correct, we're just accepting tonight, and then any additional activity would be the discretion of the commission.
Yes.
All right. So for the commission, what I would suggest is that we sort of take this in two steps. One is our normal process to accept the application, and then if we want to entertain any additional activity, we could take that as a second tier. So is there a motion to accept the application?
So moved, Ned.
And
So
Mark,
second. Sandy, do you have one of those?
Sure.
Yeah, we got it.
Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, so we accept the application. Normally, that would end our activity until the next meeting 2 weeks out. So if anyone from the commission feels like we should entertain additional activity, we could take a motion on that. Otherwise, we could use the next 2 weeks to allow the applicant to coalesce the game plan, and we can talk about it again 2 weeks out.
Mr. Chairman, I'm not gonna, I don't think the votes are there for that anyway, but I had another question. Is that walking path like the high point between the drainage swale against the highway and the wetland?
This is Mike Ott. It is. Yes.
Okay.
Let's see if there's
So
a
in other
photo
words, there's not really any, my question gets to is there's no direct drainage off the highway into this drainage basin.
I don't think so, and this actually gives me an opportunity to clarify about the outlets. I believe from what I've seen, including studying topographic mapping, that, like I said, the outlets are actually roughly in the middle, but there's a ditch that runs parallel to the highway and heads north. And I think the two purple culverts that you see crossing the highway are the large culverts that are conveying that flow, you know, west to east across the highway. There appears to be a ditch along the highway, so highway runoff would enter that ditch and flow north. That best I could tell.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, here's the bottom. This comes off the parking lot, slopes down into the bottom of the basin. It then comes up to the trail, and then it flows back down to 84. And then along 84, there's a swale where the water pitches off of 84 into this swale, flows north into these pipes. Come on, I'm thinking, but into these inlet pipes, which then go underneath 84 over to Batterson Park. And there is an outlet pipe in the basin somewhere, like Michael was saying, over in this area here. So to answer Ned's question, the water does not get into the pond because this is a berm here. So the water hits here and then flows north.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. I do have one more comment for Andrew and Eric and Michael. I think, you know, the comments from the commission are not strong opposition to the project. It's the timing in the process that we're going through. So I think that, you know, if the initial objective was aesthetics, I think you're probably better off for this regulatory entity to flip the narrative. If you can present to us what the environmental improvements and the engineering reasons are for doing the work, then it probably is a much easier application for us to review and process. If it's just aesthetics, and then secondarily there are some environmental and engineering benefits, it's probably, you know, a more difficult application process. So that's something to ponder for the next 2 weeks.
Thank you.
Okay, Bruce, does it for this app?
I think so. Yep.
Okay. Thank you all.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
All right, next application.
Yep. We'll move on to Jones Construction, 8556 New Britain Avenue.
Yep. Give me a second. Let me start closing out some of these. It's getting pretty backed up here. That's that one. That one. Here we go. All right, I think we do have the I think we do have the design team on board here.
Yes.
Yes. Yep.
All right, who's gonna start?
I could start. Hi, my name is Rick Jones from Jones Construction. We're here to present our application tonight for 556 New Britain Ave. Basically, right now it's a wooded lot. It's 4 acres, and we want to put up three warehouse buildings.
Just to get everybody on board, this is a lot that's just south of the highway department. Here we go. So there's the highway department right there. And it's this lot right in here.
Yep.
Right in between that and the the redesigned M&J bus service center.
Correct. So Hyde Brook does run through, you know, the northwest side of it. The topography is fairly flat, with the exception of the rear of it. You know, it's slopes up quite a bit to the back where the trail is. So we do have Eric Davison here to go over what he found. He went out there and flagged any wetlands, and he's here tonight along with my engineer David Tompkins, and he could go over the plan a little bit more for you.
Yeah, how you doing? It's Eric Davison, wetland and soil scientist. You should have a copy of my wetland delineation report. It was dated June 18th. Yeah, there it is. Thank you. Thank you, Bruce. The wetlands delineated here are pretty straightforward. They're actually predominantly on the site just to the west. Most of the delineated resource is actually off site. So what you see flagged is the eastern, southeastern side of Hyde Brook. Hyde Brook at this location is channelized. It has a very steep, abrupt bank. It discharges from a culvert outlet at the south side and into a culvert inlet on the north side at New Britain Ave. There's no bordering wetlands on the brook. Again, it's a steep wooded bank right down to the edge of water. You can see that from the few photos that I put in my report showing the condition of the brook and the inlet and outlet pipes. The remainder of the site is highly disturbed. There it is there, yeah. The remainder of the site is highly disturbed, historically disturbed soils. It's a large cut slope. The grades are pretty much flat, except for, as you heard, along the southern side where it borders the trail. There's a few old soil piles and things, but it is a historic cut slope. So the soils there are graded out, sandy fill areas. There's areas of compact fill. It's lightly wooded. It's mostly invasive species. It's your typical highly disturbed site. Again, there's no bordering wetlands, no wetlands on the interior of the property. So the only regulated resource is the ordinary high water mark of Hyde Brook. That's pretty much it. I can certainly answer questions if you have any.
Thanks, Eric. Is there any other anything else to present from the applicant?
Unless you guys have some questions that we can answer.
Yep, we'll go around and check with the commission. Dave, any questions?
Yeah, I was hoping that you would go through what you're going to do with stormwater site and treatment before it gets discharged to, I guess, Hyde Brook. And
There you go. He was here, wasn't
how much clearing are you going to do, and how close to Hyde Brook
he? He's right there.
will that occur? I guess those are my two big questions.
Okay, so I guess I could jump in here. This is David Hopkins for the record. I'm a licensed civil engineer with Springhand Corps LLC in Plainville, Connecticut. And for the stormwater, the drainage and treatment, we have these catch basins. You can see some of the piping from the plan. And the I'll back it up. There's catch basins near the road, which don't really take that much volume because the curbing stops just upstream of the catch basins, and then sheet flow goes off the driveways onto overland flow. And then in the parking lot area, in the central area of the site, it's mostly drained by the catch basins. And the catch basins have hooded outlets, and they discharge into the basins there, which allow for settlement of suspended sediment there. And there's also the drainage in the off the embankment on the southwest side of the property. There's a huge embankment, like 40-50 feet up to the Farmington Heritage Canal Trail. And behind the building, proposed to have a stone trench there to pick up the flow and take it to the detention basin there. And we are mitigating all the large storm events up to the 100-year storm flow to mitigate the peak runoff rate. And the buildings are all draining to infiltration chambers. So there will be no runoff up to the 100-year event from the buildings. It'll all infiltrate to recharge the groundwater. And that's it's the plan, there's berms by the road, so currently, the watershed, it flows all pretty much all of it onto the 90% onto the road, which just flows into catch basins and dumps into the Hyde Brook. But the improvement is it's going to have a little bit more infiltration from the infiltration chambers and the tension ponds, and then it'll be routed the same way to Hyde Brook. As far as the clearing limits, you can see from the plan, there's 33,000 square feet of warehouse building proposed, and the parking lot and driveways are 51,000 square feet. And the embankment, we're looking to maintain as much as we can of the existing trees, mostly up halfway. The top half of the embankment is just, it's better just to leave it. It's, high up. And then the bottom half of the embankment, the trees are going to be leaning more towards the building and more problematic in the future. So looking to clear out some, leave the good ones, and take any ash that's there. Or like you said, there's a lot of like Asiatic bittersweet, growing here. So we have this plan to put back trees and shrubs as needed. So if what's there is salvageable, then we'll keep it. If not, then we'll replace it. And yeah, so I think I'm getting ahead of myself here. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, that's okay.
Okay, so yeah, the front's going to have a berm for aesthetics. It's going to be planted with mostly evergreens and some shrubs. The small, thin detention basin in between the berm and the building is going to have some wetland plantings. Same with the other detention basin. And
Right here, by the
yeah,
road you're talking about? Okay.
Yeah, I got a sweet pepper bush planted there, and maintained. This is all going to be maintained landscaping. And as far as vegetation goes, that's all it's we're going to kind of do this as we go. So we have all these plantings shown, and only the front's going to be planted fully. The sides and the back, it's going to be to be determined, as construction goes. So yeah, that's the plan.
Can you explain that a little more, David?
Yeah, so what we can save there for this plantings are to meet the requirements of the landscape buffers. So whatever we can salvage of what's there, we'll keep, and then whatever else is needed to fill in the landscape buffer, then we'll plant it. So if it's all needed, we'll plant it. If there's already stuff there, we're not going to dig up stuff just to replace it.
That's for TPZ, just so, and maybe even wetlands, they're going to want to know exactly what's going on in this area. So I mean,
Okay.
I think that just someone needs to look at what's there and say, hey, look, you know what, there's nothing here worth saving, so we're going to do a full buffer, or you know what, we've actually located X amount of trees that we want to save. Everything else will go. So I think there needs to be a little more detail in terms of that.
Dave Fox, any other questions or comments?
That's it for now. I'll have to look over these plans a little bit more carefully for next time.
Okay. Rich, any questions or comments?
A couple comments, questions. I'd like to see some information as to what's going to be stored in these warehouses. If there's any chemicals or, that kind of thing. If there is, then what kind of containment options are being looked at? And then the other thing is the outlets to the basins. I don't see any, like hydrodynamic separators or water quality, like forebays or anything like that. So I'd kind of be interested to see what kind of water quality measures are going to be taken with this project. That's all I have. Thank you.
Neil, any questions or comments?
Nothing additional. I was also curious about what's going to be stored there and if chemicals, mitigation and all of that, but and nothing further until I read through this in more detail.
Okay. Mark, any questions or comments?
The only thing it was covered, but I just want to make sure I understand the embankment behind the rear of the warehouse. How steep is that? It goes up to the trail. I understand.
Yeah, it's 2-to-1, even steeper than 2-to-1 in spots. It's probably not that stable of a slope.
That's why I was wondering, reading about the curtain drain that you're gonna. It was described as a curtain drain, but you talked about it as being some type of stone
trench. Yeah,
trench. So I was thinking a curtain drain is like you're picking up moisture down, underground, a little bit further down other than the surface. But I think what you're saying, you're a little concerned about what might come down that embankment. You want to get it away from the warehouse. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
Okay, I'm just trying to figure out if there was, I didn't see any wetness or any reason, other than what you're trying to do and what I understand now. So I was a little concerned about what was going on, but now I'm feeling, I have a better idea and understanding. No further questions.
Ned, any questions or comments?
Yeah, so in that front corner, is that the sedimentation basin on the property, or?
Yes, that's the
Okay.
proposed sedimentation basin. Yes,
There's one here and then there's one over here as well.
right.
Okay. Oh, so that was my question. There is one that's behind the building, 208.
Yeah, I don't think the outlets aren't shown. The piping isn't shown on the landscaping plan very clear.
Okay.
Give me a second. Let me zoom out here. I think it's on this sheet here. Here we go.
That's erosion.
Oh,
One
that's
more.
erosion control. Go up one more. Here we go. How's that? A little better? Oh,
Yeah.
Turn the sheets. Here we go. Let me zoom out one more. There you go. So here's that basin, water coming in, and then water going out back underneath New Britain Avenue.
Okay. And again, back to like what's going to be stored here. What is this like a rented warehouse space, or?
Yeah, so I can answer that. So basically our goal is to rent out to contractors, electricians, plumbers, HVAC guys, individual base. So not more than likely it won't be one person in one building. It'll be,
Right.
several contractors in
Yeah,
building.
I've seen this development before, but what I'm saying is being so close to the brook there, and in regards to materials, we're gonna kind of need an outline as to what stipulations you're gonna have to put in for, with lease agreements as to precautions that people have to take. If they're going to bring hazardous materials, or if we allow hazardous materials in this thing. I don't want to hamstring you and say you can't have it here, but you need to have something in your agreements with people that they are responsible with any kind of hazardous materials that they bring in, so that it can't be leaking out anywhere.
Yeah, no, of course. I mean, that would definitely be something we'd have in the lease, and I obviously don't want any contamination on the property either. It's at this point. I mean, I didn't even really. I don't think that we're really looking to get somebody manufacturing any sort of chemicals there, or any manufacturers at all. Really, we're more marketing towards the plumber, the electrician, a stair maker. But yeah,
Okay.
we would have that in our lease agreement with them regardless.
Okay.
And Rick, I think what they're looking for is exactly that. I mean, like I said, could the plumber be there working on his vehicle, changing his oil? That's one thing. That's something I don't think they're not going to want to see any kind of vehicle maintenance on this site. If you do have a cabinet, a stair maker, is he gonna be refinishing? So is he gonna be using stains and strippers to get in there and refinish? So these are the things they're trying to look for. So those are the questions I think that maybe you need to look a little more and talk to the team and say, hey, look, yeah, these are things we're gonna have to either prevent or put in the lease so they don't do. So
Understood.
understood? Okay.
Karen Vibert, any questions or comments?
Question, listening to everything everybody is saying, is it mostly going to be storage of equipment as opposed to people working inside the warehouses?
I think it's going to be mostly, you know, small business based, and you know, it's going to be the electrician or the plumber. They're going to, you know, meet there with their couple employees in the morning, and they're going to probably load up their supplies and then jump in their van or, you know, truck and go to work. I don't think there's going to be much working out of there, but I mean, I don't know, you know, really what we're going to attract at this time. I mean, our goal is definitely not to have, you know, mechanics and a bunch of, you know, equipment outside. That's not really what we want. We want, you know, everything inside. We want it to be a nice looking place that's going to bring good people and, you know, good rents in.
Thank you.
Unless there's further questions, I'll take a motion to accept.
I just said, if I could I say one more thing, please?
Absolutely. Go ahead, Mr. Jones.
We did get back some comments from the engineering department. I know typically we'd be able to come back in 2 weeks, but I think to go through this, you know, thoroughly, we'd like to ask for a month to get. Maybe we can come back here in a month with everything.
Yeah, that would be fine. I think, Mr. Jones, what we'll do is it'll stay on the agenda, and you can work with Bruce if going into the next meeting 2 weeks out, it's not ready for any further activity, then it'll stay on the agenda, but it will just roll over until the first, whatever the meeting 4 weeks out would be.
Perfect. Appreciate it.
Bruce, did that sound right?
Yep, no, that's right. The application came in while I was on vacation, so I'm pretty much seeing this for the first time right now today. I know that Dylan Riley and Garrett and Shannon from our office had gone through it and had sent out some initial comments to get back to them. So based on that, there may be comments on top of that afterwards as well, because there was lots of questions exactly what the commission had asked for as well. So
thanks, Bruce. Okay, so is there a motion to accept?
Good move, Mark.
Is there a second?
We will second.
Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, motion carries.
Thank you.
Okay,
all
thank
right.
you.
Number 6.
Excellent. Thanks, Bruce. All right, the cease and desist for 504 Main Street.
504 Main Street, and I thought, did I see?
Val was on.
Yeah, Val is here, but I also thought that
Oh, Ian.
Ian, is he on?
Yep.
I am here.
Oh, there you are, Ian. I thought you were. Okay. So let me just open that. I just had way too many things open, and the system would have crashed. So let me just open those while we're sitting here. 504. You had sent your report memo update. Here we go. So I think that this all had gone out to the commission while I was away as well. Ian is a little bit of a summary from September 19th.
Yeah, I put that together the other day.
You want to go over it a little bit for him? Just
Yeah,
kind of
no,
update?
absolutely. So, good evening for the record. My name is Ian Cole, professional soil scientist, professional wetland scientist. My involvement with 504 Main Street goes back to July. I got a call from Todd Clark over at Clark Land Surveying that he had a client that got notice from the town for some unpermitted clearing in the upland review area. Could I come down and flag the wetland boundary behind 504 Main Street along the Pequavic River there? So this parcel, I don't know how familiar the commission is at this point. I know it's been in front of the commission for several meetings. But essentially, this property is down along the Farmington Plainville line. It's right next to the Firestone tire that's right before you get to the Northwest Drive there that cuts through over to Plainville. The wetland boundary on this lot, it's pretty well defined. It occurs basically along the western side of both this property, and really where the bulk of the activities occurred is really on the property to the south of 504 Main Street. 504 Main Street does not own this property, but it's kind of a vacant lot that's kind of a leftover from surveying, splitting up those subdivisions, from my understanding. So essentially, at the tail end, as you see on the graphic here, where wetland flag 1 along the Plainville town line, there's 2 drainage pipes, conduit drainage pipes that basically discharge into the wetland, which has occupied the low-lying forested land to the west of the site here. So you have one discharge pipe at the south, and then there's this 15-foot wide drainage. If you go back and look at Connecticut Deep Air Archive photos for this area, you can see it looks like in the 1970s for the 71 aerial, this was actually an open trench that all the way extended to the road. And then sometime between the 70s and the 80s, when they did a lot of site improvements in this area, for both the connector to Northwest Drive and along Route 10, they did a lot of drainage stuff. They culverted that water course, and so all the land, all the upland within the upland review area on this lot is all urethane soils. It's basically manufactured lands that date back from when the building was originally created in the 50s. And then again in the 70s with those drainage improvements and closing in some of those stream corridors that discharge into the floodplain there. Last Friday, I went down there with Val, and we, at one of the commission's requests, were to, along the wetland boundary, could you determine if, in addition to land clearing, because in addition to land clearing, some of the topsoil was stripped from the top and stockpiled, and that's the stockpile that if you drive by you see kind of up near the road. And so the topsoil was stripped, but excavating these soil pits, it was to determine, were there any wetlands that were indirectly filled by any machinery that was on the property or things of that nature. So we excavated 2 test pits. It's not a very big area. We excavated 2 test pits right along the wetland boundary. Now the wetland boundary here is very well defined. We can go through some of the photos and some of these memos and whatnot. It kind of illustrates how well defined it is. So this photo, if you just want to pass right out. So this photo is test pit number 1. And basically what it's demonstrating here is kind of what we expected to see, which was essentially 2 to 3 feet of sandy material fill, grandfathered fill, on top of what was probably the relic floodplain, pre-1950. So this is all grandfather stuff. And you can see in this photo, if it comes through at all, the right where the cursor is, that darker layer, that's like the buried wetland from the 1950s. And when I'm looking at this photo to see, was there any recent activity of anything being buried or deposited? One of the telltale signs when you look in the upper layers, are there any fine roots, any roots that have been established for a long time? And you could see in this soil katina, the soil profile from top to bottom, there are many roots. There was no indication that those soil horizons had been disturbed. So in my opinion, everything was kind of in situ and had not been disturbed. The activities that occurred on the site in the upland review areas were, not to downplay anything, were superficial in terms of soil disturbance. It really was limited to the removal of the vegetation that was there, and then the mining of that topsoil, the stockpile it, to recruit it to reuse for beneficial reuse later on to do site restoration. And reviewing the Google Earth roadside imagery, you can kind of get a flavor of what did this forest community look like prior to these activities. And you can kind of see that there were lots of, this is kind of like tree of heaven area, a lot of bittersweet. It's like, that forest community that's being kind of torn down by bittersweet. And some of the photos that we go through, you can kind of see the relics of what the tree line looks like over at Firestone is kind of reminiscent of, the flare of what this area looked like pre-clearing. So, as we've heard, on previous applications tonight, it's a common theme with wetland disturbances. the driving force here was, aesthetics improvements to the property. You can see, when you look at the planometrics that we were looking at before, the property line proper is very close to the building, and vegetation is close to encroaching. So doing site improvements that were needed since this building was left in a derelict state for many years required clearing of some of the stuff. One of the good benefits of coming in here to remove that material was it's my understanding that a significant amount of leftover debris from previous uses was removed. That was kind of embedded in kind of all that vegetation that was left to kind of from the last time that it was cleared in the 70s. It sounded like there was, and Val could correct me, something in the order of 45 yards to almost 60 yards of material, maybe even more. So that was a good benefit, unintended consequence of removing that vegetation, was being able to get in there to access to remove all that kind of that debris and stuff that was left behind from those past uses. If you want to scroll down to the next, so this memo was generated last week. This is test pit number 2, kind of close to the building. Ironically, this is the difference between taking a photo in the sun versus taking the photo not in the sun. The soil colors of both these pits actually are kind of very similar, although in this one it looks much more red versus the muted colors in the other one. But essentially, this is a little bit higher up in topography. It essentially demonstrates the same thing, that there's that 3 to almost 4 foot in this area of fill on top of that relic buried footprint. And again, it demonstrates that no material was deposited or pushed into the wetlands. That wetland boundary that was there has been pretty well defined for a very long time. And I don't believe that any ground disturbance occurred into the wetland boundary, and that the unregulated activities were limited to that vegetation removal and the stripping of the topsoil. If you want to go down, I can just walk you through some of the pictures at the end of this memo here. So these were taken on last Friday. Show some of the updates. So Bruce, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't remember the exact date, but at some point in August, I met with Bruce. I'm sure Bruce updated the commission on all this. Bruce, myself, Todd Clark, and Val, we met on site and kind of discussed, a high level of like, hey, here are the things, the corrective actions that need to happen to secure the site, and then work towards kind of the restoration phase of resolving any potential violations. And they really were like the big ones were there. From my memory, there were 4 of them. It was kind of to reset ENS controls, establishing hay bales and the silt fence. Those have been done. Seed the area. The area was, when I first got on site, had just been freshly seeded. If you go to my wetland delineation report, which we can run through that too, you can see the photos. Basically, it's bare soil. But in these photos now, you'll see as we scroll through them, the grass seed has really taken well. So here you can see in this photo the silt fence on the right-hand side. That's literally the physical wetland boundary. It's very well defined. And then this vegetated shoulder here, that's really kind of become a thick growth of like American pokeberry, docks, beggar tick, nightshade, things like kind of in that disturbed community likes that stuff. And then where the person standing in the background, that's all the fresh grass seed. And then you can see there's kind of 2 zones of ENS control. There's the silt fence at the limits of disturbance, and then higher up, because there's an active work zone for some site improvements for fixing the building roof and gutter flow, there's a very well-established perimeter line of hay bales that are doing a great job at de-energizing any flow that's kind of sheet flowing off the road and heading towards the wetlands. It's very flat in there now. It's got a lot of good infiltration. I've been down on this site now. I mean, we've had some tremendous rains the last couple of weeks, like mind-blowing rains, right? It's like every day there's a 5-inch rainstorm. And I've gone down here after a couple of those, and I've been impressed at how well it's held up. And I think a lot of that's due to, Bruce's quick suggestions of putting down some of that ENS blanket along the shoulder. You can kind of, if you look in this photo, some of that, it looks like dead vegetation that's really the ENS blanket that was originally placed down there, and the vegetation just hasn't kind of really poked through that yet. But eventually that too will kind of infill with what's right now becoming kind of that American pokeberry nightshade dockweed community. If you want to go down to the next photo. And these just kind of show what the existing condition. You can see the grass, 100% cover of grass in most of these areas. You can see that's the topsoil in the background that was stockpiled and recruited. That was all, you know, on-site material, not material that was imported into the site. And here's the trend. This is looking south, standing in that cleared area in that little triangle piece, looking south towards the Plainville town line. The building in the background in the kind of left corner there, that's Firestone, and that silt fence is running along the northern, or yeah, I guess that would be the northern perimeter of that southerly Condot drainage easement that flows into the Pequabic River. And then this photo kind of demonstrates on the right hand side of the silt fence is upland, you know, that's the pokeweed and the nightshade and all that. And then on the left hand of the photo is the wetland. You can almost kind of see how the wetland vegetation looks a little dirtier, and that's because of the, you know, the floodwaters from the silt that kind of come and wash over it and whatnot. But so that's the wetland boundary in a nutshell and the activities that have occurred to date. You know, I think you know, the next part of the puzzle to move this forward would be to be working with town staff on establishing a restoration zone. Long-term plans for this area. The 504 Main Street has expressed they have a need to improve parking long-term for this project. That was really the precipitous for, you know, let's aesthetically clean this up, but long-term I also need to clean up to see what's in there, so because I need to establish some parking. That's still in flux of being defined for what's needed, and it's kind of compounded of what that space would look like, because it sounds like, well, it doesn't sound like it is, the outlet structures for some of those drainage easements, particularly the one that's closest to the building, are failing and are in need of repair. But there's no immediate plans to repair these things. There's no engineering done or whatnot. There's conversations that have been had with Condot about, you know, what that will look like, about replacing it and who may be responsible for doing it. But at some point that's something that will also be it's basically past the end of its service life because it was installed in the 70s. So, you know, those are some things to take into consideration when, you know, hey, what are we going to restore? Because what we're trying to avoid is restoring an area that ultimately would be re-excavated, you know, in favor of improving some of those drainage features. I have some ideas of, you know, what would be a good planting plan, basically along the border of the shoulder from, say, wetland flag 10 down to like wetland flag 6, kind of in that lower zone there, that I would like to discuss with town staff of what could be achieved down there. I think there could be a good balance between achieving a nice vegetated buffer that's consistent with, you know, some of these developments along Main Street and bordering to the Pequabic River and the Farmington River, and allowing him to improve some needed space, you know, closer to the roadside. Part of that conversation, though, is, you know, from the engineering standpoint of what would be needed for, you know, water quality improvements and whatnot, to also kind of fold into the mix. So, you know, at the moment, it's an update. And we're working towards resolving this to the satisfaction of the commission.
Thanks, Ian.
Chair, if you don't mind, let's have a couple of small things.
Yes, go ahead.
Before it goes on to you guys. Couple things, Val, Ian, we had talked about a wetlands function and values. Have you done any of that yet or started looking into any of that?
So I did not do a full-blown function and value. So there's one thing I was going to talk to you about of, what's the most valuable thing here. So, in terms of functions and values, I think in demonstrating that no inland wetlands were filled as a result of these activities, the next thing is kind of like, this is really an upland buffer restoration planting plan is more or less than a wetland restoration plan would have been. Now, if we had gotten there and it found out that wetlands were filled and, you needed to tease that material out, then it would be much more involved than it would be a wetland restoration plan. And I think at that point, you'd really want to do all the functions and value assessment. High level, we could openly talk about the functions and values. I mean, this is a large wetland system, right? It's really its primary function and value is floodwater attenuation and desynchronization and all those things. And I think the activities that occurred here doesn't directly affect that. I think the activities here to resolve them, to strike that balance of what the commission's, mantra here is, which is wetlands protection, would be one of restoration plantings to improve basically water quality long term.
All right, yeah, because that's why I wasn't sure. I know that, like I said, we have many pictures being out there numerous times during the flooding where that is strictly a backwater area for the upper part. I just didn't know if you guys had seen any kind of if there was any kind of amphibians or if there's any kind of thing noticed inside that wetland.
No, to be honest with you, there actually is, so because these drainage features were put in 40, 50 years ago, you have 40 years of sediment that have been discharging kind of in this backwater effect. And essentially what it's done is this backwater channel is filled in with sediment, right? So if this was, 1970, before the Clean Water Act, there'd be someone down there with a backhoe excavating the channel out to reestablish that flow path. I think ultimately when Condot or somebody comes in to fix that 15-foot drainage unit close to the building, that's probably going to be part of the resolution is that, part of that permit process, they probably will need to, re-dredge out some of that channel to allow that hydrologic connection to kind of flow back. Because right now, the water back there is very stagnant. Anytime there's a flood, it basically sits back there and doesn't have an avenue to escape.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm not sure how much of it is the swale would need to be excavated versus the elevation of that pipe and the floodway. Because like I said,
agreed, right? That's a whole different animal. That's like a big Condot study kind of solution.
And the other question was, we had a comment with regards to like between wetland flag 10 and 13, the slope. So if we go back to your memo.
Yes, there was the request. There was the request, right, to peel that back 3 to 1. I think it's an exercise between. I think that's a conversation that needs to bring Todd Clark, the survey and engineer, back into the equation, because I want to dovetail that into the long-term site improvements that might be needed for any future parking or whatnot. I don't think they're necessarily at the point right now to provide all those level of details, but I also think that it's not like they're going to wait here months and months and years to come up with something. So I think the important part that they could come to resolution or conclusion now would be like, how much area can we work with for restoration that provides that balance between allowing you to do your future site improvements in the future and not come back in with some conflict where, you restored an area that someone's now trying to show that they want to improve upon. Does that make sense?
Okay. And then what is your schedule? What would you see a schedule going forward for a plan and an implementation? I know the commission's very adamant on getting this work done as soon as possible.
So I would offer that if town staff, I can work with town staff to meet them very early next week for a quick conversation, and then I can work with Val on coming up with a quick plan. I don't think we're talking about basically a restoration planting plan here and it's going to be what species are we going to select to achieve what, in my opinion, kind of off the cuff, you can go and get a couple of tree species here to re-establish some of the forested cover that was lost. Now there weren't a lot of big trees here; they were small, You know, and the typical container stock plantings we're talking about here, just how many are going to fit within that zone. And, you know, those kind of details we can work out pretty quickly.
But you think, I guess, timing wise, would you see
I
getting
could
the-
see them getting you know, having the ability to have more than enough time to install plants this fall.
Okay. With the understanding that you're coming back to the commission with a restoration plan?
Yes,
And then maybe having to come back one other time if they have any comments
So-
and want tweaks and changes.
So I know the commission meets every 2 weeks. You know, I think we could at least have a written plan for the commission in the next 2 weeks. If not, I don't haven't talked to Mr. Clark, so I don't want to overcommit him to his ability to prevent something like a document. But again, you know, I don't see this as a necessarily a big lift, so to speak.
Right. Because we meet again on October 4th and then on the 18th. So we would say
Okay.
as a worst case scenario, we have an approval by the 18th. Planting would be starting soon after then. Okay.
And Bruce and Ian, I think next week is a big week because we can't wait until the 4th. You'd have to get the restoration plan to Bruce and staff, you know, at least several days before our meeting because they need to review it and then, you know, pass it along to us. So, you know, if you have time to meet with Bruce, you know,
yeah,
as soon as possible, early next week, then, you know, maybe that would be feasible to get something to us for the 4th, but you can't wait until the 4th.
Sure. Yeah, sure thing. I'll contact you tomorrow, Bruce.
Sounds good, sir. Thank you. All right, Chair. Tell you, sorry about that.
Yeah. No, thanks, Bruce, because the schedule is one of the things I was going to touch on. So we'll go around and see if there's any questions from the group, and I'll sort of go in reverse order again. So Ned, I'll start with you. Any questions or comments?
Yeah, mute. Let's see. He was there.
I'm on. I was on mute.
Right.
No, I don't think I have any questions at this time. Thank you.
Thanks. Mark, any questions or comments?
No questions. I'm not ecstatic about what the outcome of this whole thing is, but at least the disturbance area was less than I thought it was. I think I'm thankful of that, but I'm just not thankful that this happened in the first place. That's all.
Neil, any questions or comments?
Yeah. So one of the reasons we asked for the test pit was to establish the wetland boundary and try to determine whether or not it was consistent with old maps and outdated stuff and all that. Is the boundary where you now have it, is that consistent with where we thought it was?
Yes, in my opinion, the boundary is consistent with both resource mapping and if there was any legacy mapping from an actual wetland survey. I think you could have 10 soil scientists out here and everyone would have the same line. It's pretty well defined, and I believe that it's been well defined for quite some time.
Okay. And just a question on the pile of topsoil there. Where did that come from and how long has it been there?
My understanding is I've seen topsoil on that site since I've been there since July, from what I remember. My understanding is that most of that is recruited all from on site.
Okay. Because I don't remember seeing it until I drove by it about a week ago. But I know Bruce has some pictures, so maybe we can look back at those.
Leave me a second here.
Rich, any questions or comments?
Yeah, I want to thank Ian for doing the test pits and settling on a wetlands delineation now, so that we can move forward. That pile of topsoil that's sitting there, I think at the minimum we should get a ring of hay bales or something around it because it seems to be toward the wetland side of that second row of hay bales. So
Wasn't there in July? Yep.
just get something around it so we don't get any erosion toward the wetland area.
Yeah, I had asked the applicant, I guess he had his dad out there doing a lot of the work when he was out of the country, and I had to talk to him about actually putting seeding that as well. So I talked about getting some erosion control and then seeding it. But I think they had, and I think Val's on, he can maybe question. I'm just looking through our photos now, see if there's anything showing that pile to exactly when that popped in.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, I'm not so concerned that the pile is there, but
Yeah.
now that it is there, we need to address it to make sure we
Mhm.
didn't create any problems. And I'm happy to see that the the seeding and we're getting some vegetation growing on on the area directly adjacent to the wetland. So that's great. Let's keep going.
The concern with the pile, I might add, I don't know if you remember that it's not
Yeah,
showing. Go ahead.
Yeah, so Bruce, there's no pile in that picture, right?
Yeah, July, and then that's on July 17th.
Okay.
And this is back to July 24th.
Right, you see, okay. It's right behind that last picture. You see the piles up against the building there? It was all piled up.
Yeah, those are smaller. Yeah, that was these here.
It was all along the building, and then it was the front end of the building was stripped also after they had built.
And when was that done?
I don't know what I would say.
The first picture, somewhere between
after the first meeting, I remember he specifically said that I was allowed to. I thought in the meeting, I thought we had a discussion about that.
Yeah, no, it was somewhere between 7:24 and
That's
9:06 is when the pile jumped in. So
okay, all right, thanks, Bruce.
Whatever.
Dave, any questions, comments?
No, I have nothing to add at this point.
Okay. Karen, any questions or comments based on tonight's discussion?
No, thank you, sir.
Okay. So it seems like the applicant needs to work with Bruce and come up with the restoration plan, and we'll talk about it again on the 4th.
And Chair, just to update the commission as well, I wanted to do that. We did issue a fine back on, which one was this one? Back on September 8th. So because we thought it was a willful act, as we had discussed in the past. So he is being fined at a rate of $250 a day. So just so everyone is aware of that. All right.
Thanks, Bruce.
Now I have a question. Since that wasn't a willful act, does that still take place? As we can see that I wasn't entering the wetland, that was the whole issue here, right?
It's not just that disturbance of the wetland; it's the upland as well. And, and that's something that I think, as we had discussed, the fine is issued. I mean, definitely once the intention is to try to get this thing done and completed. When the restoration is done, we can come back to the commission at that point and discuss it if you want.
He dropped.
Who did? Val dropped?
Yeah.
All right. Sorry. Sorry.
I can relay the message too.
Okay. All right. Thank you, sir.
All right. Have a good night. Thank you.
You too,
Thank
sir.
you.
Thank you. All right.
All right. Thanks, Bruce. If you can help me guide. Now we're on to
Yeah,
the
I'm
next
gonna get to the
cease and
next one.
desist, right?
Next one
Yep.
is the Jones 504. Next one is 1509 Farmington Avenue. There's nothing to report, or sorry, there is no the owner is not here to for any kind of report. He did stop in the office today after some multiple. I tried contacting him before I went on vacation to get some repairs done, and then Shannon had followed up with him once or twice while I was away, and there was no response. So the only response I got was right after the last meeting. He had called Hodge Surveying, and they had called me to get some information. They were working on a proposal for him to put together to do some location of the wetlands, survey, elevation, FEMA flood lines, all that stuff. Since that time, when he came in this morning, he mentioned he still hasn't received the proposal from them yet. However, he's still questioning the commission's authority in this matter. Thinks it is a act that is it's allowed by the regulations. So I gave him a copy of the regulations, the minutes, the videos of the meetings, as well as an application. So I think he will be coming back with an application to the commission to permit the work that he has done. So I kind of had a long conversation on what is required. He understands what's required, so at this point we have to we'll go from there. I had also issued him a citation on September 8th, and that one is for $250 a day as well. So that is an ongoing one as well. I can update you guys quickly on some photos that Shannon and Garrett had taken while I was away.
Yeah, good, because Shannon's original update to us was, they were busy. She didn't have a chance to get out, and staff didn't have a chance to get out, but they would get out before the meeting. So yeah, if you have photos, that would be good.
Exactly. So here's from 9/11, right? This was the day this was the day that this was my last day. Garrett had gone out and taken a look. So this is that mafia block, or sorry, the concrete block down by the river, and the silt fence is on this way, and you can see the water is migrating underneath through here. Okay. This is the top. You can see a large amount of the heavy rain had washed out a lot of this area. Okay. All coming down, heading down towards the river down through there. They're kind of blow up, so a little hard to see. But this was that path from Farmington Avenue down to the lower section of the lot. Again, all the washouts. We've got some along the river here. Here's the old foundation, and you can see the amount of water that had flowed through there. All around the machine. Here's the concrete block, silt fence, hay bales, and you can see the amount of sediment that had gone up through there. And as you can see from that other picture, it is migrating underneath through there. All right. Since it was that, I got my email, I'd have to go back, but I think it was like right after our meeting, I had asked him to dig this area out larger, make this a larger temporary sedimentation basin, just to try to reduce the flow going through here and trying to slow it down and try to get some of these fines to settle out, because as you can see, the large amount of disturbed area that's upland of this area. It's up top. And then here's the Farmington River, and here's that fill that we had talked about. Again, I call it fill. I don't think I'm using the right word. It's not material that he supposedly trucked in. This is the material that he pushed from the old foundation side out towards the river. All right, and you can see the debris that's in there from the construction materials there. Here's the delta of sediment that had washed out into the river. This is a large ledge outcrop, and if you look on the aerials, you'll see there's many sections of these large ledge outcrops in that area. So this is the delta of material that has washed out into the river. We had asked him to work with a wetland scientist to pull this material back, to get back to the original ground and then start setting the erosion control. Because of the ledge here, I don't think there's anything you can do at this point. So since he's not contracted with a wetland scientist at this point, he mentioned to me this morning that he wants to get down there and he wants to get started on the work. I advised them not to, because I said, look, I don't want you digging in there, making any more disturbance or taking out more material than what was there. I said, it really needs to be done under the purview of a wetland scientist at that point. So that's where we stand there. This is coming from those concrete blocks right out down into the river.
Yeah, and Bruce, I would agree. We don't want him doing the work. He's already made a mess of the site, and based on, his attitude and the continued comments that, he's entitled to do this on his own. We just don't want him doing any work without oversight from a professional.
And then these are photos from yesterday. There's not much difference, but this was after that 4 inches of rain that we had on that Wednesday of last week. So you can see it pretty much looks the same. Washing out towards the river. This is up top. This is along the base in the lower section here. You can see this whole area, the amount of water that it washed. Like I said, the saving grace is this berm at this point. The only really way it's getting out to the river is through this little opening here. You can't see in the pictures because of the glare. Garrett had tried to get some pictures, but the sun and the glare of the water, you really can't get what's out in the river, but that hasn't changed. The delta is still there. You can see some of it here. Again, the river was a little higher than it was that last time as well. So. So that's all the photos there. So at this point, he is being fined. I'm gonna expect, he said he can get the application into us today, but I said it can't be put on the agenda at this point because it was too late. So I'm assuming we would probably be seeing an application next week for our review. And we'll take it and we'll take it from there.
Yeah, and Bruce, I think on a short-term basis, the weather for the next couple of days looks good. Then we're supposed to get some more rain over the weekend. He may need to put in additional hay bale or silt fence check dam. Obviously, there's quite a bit washing through the concrete block, so I think you were correct in getting to try to make that settling area a little larger, but an additional row of erosion control, an extra row or two is probably going to be needed to try and minimize it still gets out to the river.
Exactly. And I'd asked them to do that again, but as you can see, I mean, where's the machine? I mean, the machine it's a very small machine and it's half buried. The tracks are half buried with all the amount of rain that we had. I don't know if it's, you can see it. I'm not sure what that machine can even do in there. I think it would actually get lost if you went in there, pushed in there a little bit more. But there is, if he can, I asked him that's something he could do in the meantime, is to clear that out and to clean it out and to enlarge that.
Okay, and obviously to put in another row of hay bales or silt fence.
Exactly. Yep, that too.
A couple of laborers and a couple bottles of water, and they'll be done.
Yeah, but I think that's the problem. I think he's trying to do all the work himself at this point, and I think that's kind of where the problem is, making it harder and harder for him. Just the amount of work that needs that actually needs to be done. So.
All right, thanks, Bruce. No doubt you'll be busy now that you're back.
Well, huh?
No doubt you're going to be busy now that you're back.
Yes, exactly. All right. Where are we here? So that's the cease and desist there. Apple tree, that's just off on the distance. There was some work done on the property while I was away. George Logan had met with the owner and the owner's landscaper. They had gone over a few things. Apparently, there may have been some miscommunication on where the plants were to go. So George is meeting with them again tomorrow morning to discuss it. I've got a meeting conflict, so I'm going to try to pop in really quick, meet with them, and then get back here. So George has got it pretty well under control. I saw some pictures. He's got it all painted out for him. It's pretty much paint by the numbers at this point. So hopefully they can follow through with George, and George is pretty much on top of them for this. But just to let you know as well, we had submitted a fine for this one as well. Issued a fine in the amount of, where was it? $13,000. This was based at $150 a day from October 24th of 22 last year, which was the initial notice of the violation, to the January 19th, 2023, when the erosion control was actually installed. So that's where that stands at this point. All right.
Thanks, Bruce.
So I'll have more for the commission next week on that one, our next meeting. The other one is 301 Colt Highway. And again, I hate to take your time up here, gentlemen, but I just want to make sure we're all on the same page here. Got a request. They've been doing some pond maintenance out there. I met with them last time. Let me get this out of the way here. They did some cleaning up of the pond a little bit. So we kind of worked a little but there was some little minor clearing of these weeds that they wanted to have pulled. So I said, look, it's all by hand. I said that they could do a small little area just to kind of thin it out a little bit. But now they've come back, and I guess the pond has a fountain through here, and it's all backed up. So as part of that, they're looking at making some repairs to the pond and or pulling out the there's like a little ADS pipe standing up that they use for the manhole or the silo for the pump. So they may want to pull that out, dig it down, and go down a little deeper to get that pump to work again. So I said, well, look, let me talk to the commission. This is getting a little larger than what we had initially talked about. I wanted to get your opinion of whether, if he does go with that lowering of that the pump, is that something we want to do for an application, or is that something okay that we can just work with staff on? Just closely work with staff as he's doing the work.
And Bruce, what's there now for you said they're gonna lower the level of the existing pump?
No, I'm not gonna look. I lower the level. What it is there's a pump in there, okay? And this is all a fountain. If you've ever driven through there, this is, and I don't have a good picture, but right here, there's a large waterfall, and it just kind of it pumps from here back up over this and back down. So it just keeps recirculating. This was constructed as part of the hotel over on at the 301 Colt Highway. So this is more of a stormwater quality basin. So, and it also turned into a landscape feature as part of the construction as well. So what's happened is that pipe has filled up with sediment over time. So now that pump is not anywhere deep enough to grab the water. So they need to pull it out, clean it out, get it back to where it was before, so they can again pump the water and just keep recirculating. A lot of these plants were put in as part of the original construction, and I want to say, who was the wetland scientist on that one? He's retired now, but he was out there and they worked through that, and all the plantings had gone very well. This was like 5 or 6 years ago. And then they had closed it out. So they had called it was a model detention basin stormwater quality feature. It is as I said, it is strictly a water quality feature at this point, because it does take drainage from the parking lot, allows it to settle before it dumps out into the across the street and into the Scott Swamp not sanctuary, but the Scott Swamp wetlands. So
okay, so it's strict maintenance of the existing system. They're not changing any
Exactly.
elevations.
Exactly.
Okay.
No, they're not doing any construction in terms of dredging. It's just strictly working with the pump itself. So
Yeah, I'd take feedback from the rest of the commission, but I think that's fine for you and the staff to just keep working with the applicant or the owner, because it's just strict maintenance.
I agree.
This is Mark. I agree also.
Yeah, I agree, Neil.
Rich, I agree too.
Dave agrees as well.
Okay, I think you got a consensus there, Bruce.
thank you, everybody. I love it when a plan comes together, right? And just one thing that wasn't on the agenda, quick one, just to give everyone an update, 80 South Road, that was at affordable housing, mixed affordable housing and market rate housing next to the East Farms Firehouse. If you remember, we approved that almost a year ago. Construction has started out there. While I was away, they met with Garrett. They did some surveying to locate the wetlands, locate the limits of disturbance. So that was done. The trees were cleared and the erosion controls being installed as we speak. I think they're looking to get that all wrapped up by the end of the week before they can start with the regular construction. So if anyone's driving by and they see that, just give everyone a heads up. All right.
Okay.
Thanks, Bruce.
Hey, Bruce, this is Neil. Speaking of driving by and giving a heads up, the reason I'm asking about that pile of dirt at 504 Main, I drive by there a couple times a week. I'm on my bike there a lot, and I don't ever remember seeing it in the location that it was. And what concerned me was that it seemed to have been put there after our last meeting when we told them not to do any work on that, right? We wanted the test pit. So I don't know if you have pictures that can point to where that pile was and did it move, but that's why I keep.
No, I don't think it moved. I think what it was we were asking for the test pits, yes, but if you look at the pictures, then I can go back.
No, you don't need to, but if you could just take a look at them.
Yeah, I did, and I think because I think what it was I think he went in there. If you look, you'll see in the pictures that I have on those links that the area was very rough graded. Now when you go out there, it's very smooth. So it looks like they just went through there with a dozer, cleaned it up, smoothed the whole area out, and just pushed it all into a pile.
Okay.
That's
But if
that's
they
what
did
we're
that
done.
after our last meeting, we had told them not to do any work out
No,
there until they had.
No,
the
it was
test pits,
before.
so-
No, it was
Okay.
before the last meeting because it was
Picture, it's not
yeah,
saying
it was a
same
picture because it was I want to say it was during August maybe because that's when we were off. You know,
Okay.
he was out of the country. If you look at the email, you look at the details, he was out of the country for like a few weeks. It was while that was occurring. So
Okay.
um,
Yeah, I just wanted to double check, so I'll drop it.
Okay.
But okay, thanks.
okay.
This is Ned. I was looking at the photos and I kind of looked like to me that there was several smaller piles around that either kind of flattened out or maybe scooped out because it's also in the area where the test pits were. And
Yeah.
I think to clear some of the area for the test pits, they made all those little piles into one big pile further up the embankment. But I don't know. That was
The
what
test
my
pits
thought was on it.
The test pits were done last week while I was away. At that point, the grass had already come in very good because you'll see in my photos how fast that grass
Yeah.
came in. So there was no grading prior to the right before the test pits. The soil piles he was calling out against the building. Those were just little temporary basins to try to manage the roof water. Because if you look on those photos, you'll see so many roof leaders coming down, and that was causing a ton of problems. So we had them just hog out a little basin to collect that water off the roof to try to slow it down so it doesn't erode that slope anymore.
Okay.
All right. All right, Chair. I'm all done.
Can I ask one general question? On the town's website, it's got the thing on about the FEMA maps are being updated or being changed.
Yes, thank you about that. We had met. This has been going on for I want to say 3 years. It all started right before COVID, believe it or not, and we've been going back and forth. They had come back. They recently updated the maps, and they wanted everyone to look at them. We've gone through them with a fine tooth as much as we can with having 2 screens, putting the original, the approved plans and the proposed, and we had marked them up of where things were changing. And what they wanted to do was they're not having any kind of public informational meeting. They're putting it all on the town to take care of it. So we felt it was pretty important to try to get that information out as much as possible. So every property owner knows, at least is being notified as best as we can to look at this map, to see where these FEMA flood lines are changing and if your property is going to be affected. And there are going to be a handful of properties that are going to be affected with the changes in the elevation because they ran new models with new precipitation tables. So the flooding in certain areas has increased, and unfortunately, they've not gotten into detailed elevations on many of the areas. So what they're doing is they're pushing the responsibility back onto the owner. So Ned, for example, your property could be shown in a flood plain now, but no elevation is actually depicted. So now you're flagged as in a FEMA flood zone. Now your insurance, if they see that, they're going to increase your insurance. And now for you to fix that, you're going to have to hire a surveyor and an engineer to submit submit an application, either one of 2 things, either one depicting that it is not in the floodway or not in a floodplain, as they said, or yes, it is in a floodway, or I keep saying floodway, of a floodplain, and therefore you do have to pay the extra increase in the insurance. So it is a very good model to see. I know we put a letter in the newsletter as well, so everyone can kind of see it, but poke through it, see where your house is, and go from there. I know if you go back to our GIS, you can see what the FEMA maps used to look like. That may be a little easier because they overlaid the new on top of the old, and it could be confusing in some areas if it's very, very tight. So you can look at the GIS, turn on the FEMA layer, see what it looks like now, and then look at that map and see what it's being proposed.
Okay.
Thank you for that.
Okay, so this brings us down to approving the minutes for September 6th, 2023. Is there a motion to approve?
Move, Mark.
Second, Ned.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Anyone abstaining? I'm gonna abstain because
I'm abstaining.
Karen and I'm gonna abstain. I didn't review the minutes, so I wasn't there.
This is
And
Rich will need to abstain too.
Uh-oh. Are we short now?
Like I started a trend. Sorry, gentlemen.
Are we short? I think we're short, right? Let's see.
Yeah, because
We're good?
we have 5 and
Good,
We have
1, 2, 3,
We have
5.
6 regular and 1 alternate.
Yep.
So we're good.
That's 2. Yeah. All right. We're good then. Sorry.
great.
We're good.
All right, Bruce, is there anything further down on the agenda, or do we need to adjourn and go to conservation?
I'm all set. We can adjourn and go to conservation.
Okay, so at 9:15, we'll adjourn the wetlands portion and open the Conservation Commission meeting.
There's nothing on the agenda other than accept the minutes. I mean, approve the minutes.
Okay, is there a motion to approve the Conservation Commission minutes of September 6th, 2023?
So moved, Ned.
So a second?
Dave second.
Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Abstaining? I will abstain again.
As
Rich.
will I.
Rich too.
Okay, they still carry.
Now,
So
I-
Bruce, that,
Question, Mr. Chair. So
yes,
this,
please.
this commission is 2 commissions.
Mhm.
Inland wetlands and conservation, 2 separate, complete.
Yes,
Okay.
we run the meeting concurrent, and as we just did, we adjourn the wetlands and move on to the typically shorter conservation. So our role, is a little different. The Wetland Commission is regulatory, the Conservation Commission is advisory.
Perfect. Thank you.
There's no additional compensation, however.
And Karen,
I
go ahead.
spent 15 years on the Board of Education in Bristol, and I'm just loaded now. I got so much money from that.
And Karen, I apologize. It's been a long day for me flying in late and trying to get ready for this meeting. But my intention is to give you a call, set up a meeting. You can stop in. We can kind of go over some questions, go over the commission, and then you can answer any questions that I can answer any questions that you may have and stuff. So okay.
Thank you very much. I would appreciate that.
You're welcome. We'll give you a nice welcome package, all right? Of minutes, of
Gonna be a
meeting dates
meeting,
and
right?
stuff like that.
Lots of room.
Hey, Bruce, and I guess there's a question for the commission. I probably should have addressed this with each of the applications. But is there going to be a desire to go out and do a site walk for the Hartford Healthcare property and the Jones Construction property? Those are
Yes.
both accepted tonight.
I didn't bring those up. I mean, we could talk about that, I think the Hartford Healthcare property, let's see what he gets back to, if you want, if you guys are interested, we can make it that same day is going to be tough though, because we don't have a lot of time on the Monday. Saturday.
Yeah,
I
I'm
think
thinking if
a
we're
lot
going
of
to do
people
those
were out.
other 2 sites, then we would probably have to go to one of the Saturdays.
Exactly. So, and then the weekend after we weren't good. So, and then the week after that is the meeting, but we won't be able to have anything before the meeting. So,
well, we would have the weekend after next, right?
We have so that would be the second. Yes, we do. So I apologize. I thought it was, for some reason, I thought it was short cycled here. So,
Yeah, so potentially the 30th.
The 29th or the 30th or the 1st. If anybody has any, how about this? I know everyone's probably tired, as is I. Why don't you guys shoot me your schedules? Shoot me an email with your schedules for Saturday and Sunday, the 30th and the October 1st. All right.
Okay, sounds like a good plan.
I'll tell you now, I may be away that weekend.
Okay, so you're away. Well, all right. Anybody else Anybody else?
Don't let me stop you.
No, I know.
I could do Sunday, but not Saturday.
All right.
What are
So
the dates again? What was the weekend?
30th and the 1st.
It's down to the first now because Neil can't do the 30th. So how's the Sunday the 1st for everyone?
Dave is okay on the 1st.
Okay.
Mark, it worked for me.
Marcus, the first is good.
Is this something that is in the past, or is this something that I should be there?
Nope, it's for the applications that we have on for today, the Hartford Healthcare cleaning of the basin, as well as the Britton Avenue application for the building over on the rentals.
The warehouse.
I mean, that one's not as much. That one's just as you can see in the pictures, it's a clear little. It's a brook with a very steep slope on either side. So the wetlands is confined to the high water mark. So if anyone wants to see that one, we can do that. But there's really not much to see on that, as it is just confined to that brook area itself.
Well, I think I'll be fine for those dates.
Okay.
Especially because
Usually when we go out, there's flags and stuff. Is Hartford Healthcare going to be ready for anything like that, or
slides? What do you mean by
no flag?
Oh, flags. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, no, I don't think he flagged it because they actually confined it to just the basin. The basin is the wetlands, you know?
Okay.
So that's kind of where that was. And so
Well, they seem anxious. They seem anxious to go. So if they want us to see the features, they'd have to figure out how to get the site ready.
okay, so let me do this. Let me get back to them. It's after the fact, but let me get back to them, tell them that the commission is interested in doing a site walk on October 1st. Okay?
Yep.
Or we could wait until we could see it from I-84.
Yeah. All right. Let me do that. Let me I'll get that over to them. Okay.
Okay, so we can adjourn the Conservation Commission meeting at 9:21.